Board of Education. I'm Eric Davis, Chairman of the Board, and I call this meeting to order. I'll now ask Dr. Townsend Smith to call the roll to determine that we have a quorum of the board. And I note that a quorum of the Executive Committee is 4 members. Dr. Townsend Smith?
Okay. Ms. White?
Here.
Dr. Oxendine?
Yes, here.
Vice Chair Duncan?
Here.
Chair Davis?
Here.
You have a quorum, Chairman.
Terrific. Thank you, Dr. Townsend Smith. I'll remind us that board members it's our duty to avoid conflicts of interest and the appearance of conflicts of interest as we handle the work of this board. Any member of the board know of any conflict of interest or any appearance of conflict with respect to any matters coming before us at this meeting? If so, please state them for the record. And if during the course of the meeting you become aware of an actual or apparent conflict of interest, please bring the matter to the attention of the board. It'll then be your duty to abstain from participating in discussion on the matter and from voting on the matter. So, board members, we've seen the agenda for this November 30th, 2018 meeting and had the opportunity to review it. Ask if there are any requests for changes to the agenda, and if not, seek a motion for approval. Is there such a motion?
Move approval. White.
Motion by Ms. White. Is there a second? Second. Second by Mr. Duncan. Dr. Townsend Smith, can you call the roll?
Dr. Oxendine?
Yes.
Ms. White?
Yes.
Vice Chair Duncan?
Yes.
Chair Davis?
Yes.
It's unanimous.
Terrific. So the motion carries and we have an agenda. So we have one item on today's agenda, an action on first reading concerning the FAST NC Steering Committee recommendation. But before we proceed with that item, I'm delighted to report that significant progress has been made in restoring funding to the North Carolina Education Fund. Thanks to action by the General Assembly this week, $350,000 was restored to the North Carolina Education Fund to be used for the FAST NC initiative. And we're grateful to the members of the General Assembly and to members of our staff, particularly Cecilia Holden, for working on this particular item and bringing it to fruition. So we're also grateful for members of the FAST NC Steering Committee and our superintendent for teaming with us on getting this action taken. So now I'll turn to the chair of the FAST NC Steering Committee, former superintendent, Mr. Mike Ward, for a presentation on this item. Mr. Ward.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, board members. I guess it's good afternoon now. Thanks so much for this opportunity to discuss with you the recommendations regarding the first round of applications for FAST NC funds. We received 4 applications in the first round and have recommendations regarding each of those 4 applications. The deadline for the first round applications was November 16. The board, the FAST NC Steering Committee met on the 21st to review these applications and make a recommendation for your consideration. I'll proceed in alphabetical order if that's okay. Stop me at any point if you have a question. But the first, and I'll go alphabetically by county. The first application was an application from Duplin County. Duplin requested $197,529. $183,529 of that request was to replace destroyed or missing technology components, computers, iPads, chargers, batteries, headphones, remote controls, etc. They also requested $14,000 to replace instructional rugs. These are seating rugs in K through 2 classrooms that were destroyed and made unusable by the by the damage. The steering committee, our resources at the time of our steering committee meeting were at about $56,000. So this request far exceeded the total availability, and we had multiple requests. And I'm mindful of the recommendation of Board Member White when we first talked about our process.
Alan has joined the conference.
That we do this process in rounds, and it was incredibly sage advice. Because we had requests totally that far exceeded our capacity, and this request alone exceeded our capacity. The recommendation of the steering committee is that we fund the $14,000 to replace the 35 instructional rugs in those K2 classrooms. While we're sympathetic to the losses that relate to technology, that amount far exceeds our resources, and B, there was some hesitation on the part of some committee members to fund technology, thinking that perhaps districts might seek elsewhere for replacement of technology. We can do these as a group, or would the board like to pause and respond to this ask questions about or respond in any way to this first item?
Any questions for Mr. Ward or myself on this first item? Okay. Hearing none. Mr. Ward?
Okay. The second request, proceeding alphabetically by county name, is a request from Onslow County. The Onslow County request is from White Oak High School. The request there was, while there are a number of subparts to the request is basically two chunks. Just over $14,000 was requested to replace science materials and supplies. The science wing was wiped out at White Oak, and these are materials that would help to restore their capabilities around delivering the science curriculum. They also requested just over $3,000 in scientific calculators. The recommendation of the committee is that we fund $14,000 for the science materials and supplies. That covers all but $193 of the request for science materials and supplies. Again, we're sympathetic to the request for calculators, but we also had a major donation of scientific calculators from NC Math. Those are available at the state textbook warehouse, and we're commending those to the attention of the folks at White Oak High School. This recommendation funds all, again, but $193 of the request for science materials and supplies. The $14,000 also creates parity with
has left the conference
with the other request that we got that we talked about just a moment ago, the one from Duplin. Any questions about this recommendation before we proceed to the third application?
Hearing none. Mr. Ward?
Okay. The third application alphabetically is from Pender County. Pender submitted a request for $49,000 to provide $1,000 each to 36 teachers and 13 teacher assistants.
Alan.
In order to provide
joined the conference.
In order to provide those individuals resources to purchase materials and supplies for the classroom that are ordinarily incurred by teachers out of pocket. The committee was favorably disposed towards this application as well, knowing that a lot of materials and supplies were lost, and being sensitive to the fact also that teachers very typically purchase materials and supplies for the classroom out of their own pockets. So these materials and supplies will support classroom instruction for 36 teachers and 13 teacher assistants. Again, this was a large request, nearly $50,000. The steering committee, out of an interest in first showing empathy with the folks in Pender, but also B, trying to provide some parity in how we responded to requests, recommended that we provide $14,000 to Pender to be used for the purposes in the application and distributed a portion among the teachers and teacher assistants in a manner that the superintendent and his staff conclude work best. So $14,000 rather than $49,000 to be apportioned for these purposes among those teachers and teacher assistants. These were, by the way, teachers and teacher assistants who were displaced, who lost their dwellings as a result of the storm. So the recommendation is for $14,000 in response to the Pender request. Any questions about this one?
With the development,
This is Amy. All right.
go ahead, Ms. White.
Go ahead, Chair, Mr. Duncan.
No, please, Amy, you go ahead.
No, okay. So, again, Pender County devastated. So on board with that, but the again, just the checks and balances. Will the funds be? Is it a reimbursement type allocation from the superintendent? In other words, will teachers purchase and then provide receipts, or what's the checks and balances that the funding is actually used for classroom supplies and classroom supplies only? Was there a designation there?
We talked about the process early on with the executive committee, Ms. White, and this kind of example came up at that time, whether or not we want receipts for a lot of fairly small purchases of the sort that this is likely to be. And what we concluded at that time in the discussion with the executive committee was that a record of disbursement by the district to these individuals would suffice. It's not, and we also concluded in that conversation in terms of the deployment of resources process that we would issue a check and that they would provide either receipts or records of disbursement back to the FAST-NC steering committee and the board. Does that make sense?
It does. Thank you for the clarification, and I'm on board with that.
Okay, great. Other questions?
This is Alan, and the question is, it was the potential action of the legislature to restore funds. Is this one where the possibility of additional funds to assist, given the amount of the loss and how bad the impact was in that county, a possibility by the steering committee?
I'll speak as one member of the steering committee, and Chairman Davis can speak as well about this. I would think that even as we announce to these districts this initial grant of funds, that we can make them aware that they can resubmit applications or submit new applications for the same purposes as the committee will consider as funds increase, that we anticipated a large infusion of additional resources, and that if they want to submit and ask for more, that we'd be delighted to or see those applications.
Thank you. That's helpful.
thoughts?
No, totally agree with you, Mr. Ward. In fact, so we thought it would be prudent to have this conversation that we're having now with the executive committee, given knowledge of the General Assembly's action this week before we took any further action. But our thought was, now that we have more funds available, then we certainly would make that known to our districts, and that would give us the flexibility to be able to consider additional funding for these initial requests that exceeded our capability for this week. So we've actually got another round of applications that have come in this week, and we're looking forward to a third round following that, now that we've got more funds to distribute. And we assumed that the executive committee would be in agreement with us, but we wanted to check in with you in this call just to make sure that we're all in agreement on that.
I'm in agreement. That's great work, and thank you for the diligence and review that you've given to the existing applications, and thrilled to know that there'll be more funds at our discretion to use to help these counties that were the hardest hit. This is Olivia Ditto.
Okay. Any additional questions for Mr. Ward on these three applications and the steering committee recommendation that we approve them?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
there's a fourth application that I want to review with the board, if that's okay.
Yes. Let's, hearing no other questions, let's proceed to that one.
Okay, I'm sorry, I may have gotten out of sequence there. I apologize.
No, you're perfect. No, you're perfect.
So the final application alphabetically is from Robeson County. It's an application to provide books, games, iPads, and food for students in the Migrant education program in Robeson County. This was a request toward which the committee was favorably disposed. We liked this request, thought it was consistent with FAST NC purposes. The problem was the individual submitting the request did not supply the superintendent's signature, and of course that's a binding requirement for the application. Also there was not we don't ask for huge budget detail. We ask for a simple budget outline. There was not a budget provided. And so the committee's recommendation was that we decline this application, disapprove this application, but that I, in the role of FAST-NC chair, get in touch with the individual who submitted the application and let her know that there were some things about the application that needed to be fixed, and that we would be delighted to review the application again in the second round with those things taken care of. So that's the recommendation of the steering committee with respect to the Robeson application. And it's my understanding that individual will submit a new application, and in fact that application has been received as of yesterday with the elements amended.
I have a quick question about that. This does seem to be just a proposal, a request for funds that certainly fits my concept of that. Sort of those important signatures. I think it's the request is for $4,000. Is that correct, Superintendent Ward?
Yes, that is correct.
Very good. Oh, good. I'm glad that that's been handled.
Yeah, and the conversation with that individual was very positive, and my understanding is she went right back to work and got those pieces addressed that she needed to have addressed. And today's the deadline for round 2, and I think it was received as of yesterday.
And also a signature is a signature from, if applicable, so perhaps the principal signature doesn't apply to this grant.
I think this is a district level program,
yeah.
And if so, it's probably just the superintendent's signature
right.
would be necessary. Yeah.
Thank you.
Those are the recommendations, board members. The disbursement would be $42,000 total, leaving a balance of about $14,000 with which to address round 2 applications, which are due today, and then we should shortly have access to the revenues that the General Assembly has reassigned to the North Carolina Education Fund. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Terrific work, Mr. Ward. We so appreciate your leadership on this. And hearing no other questions, I'll ask for a motion to approve the FAST NC expenditure round 1 request. Is there a motion? Motion by Dr. Oxendine. Is there a second?
Second by Mrs. White.
Second by Ms. White. Any other discussion? Dr. Townsend Smith, will you call the roll to capture the vote on this motion?
Yes. Dr. Oxendine?
Yes.
Ms. White?
Yes.
Vice Chair Duncan?
Yes.
Chair Davis?
Yes.
It's unanimous.
Thank you, Dr. Townsend Smith. The motion carries. Thank you, members of the Executive Committee, for meeting today on this important matter and for providing this relief to our students and teachers in these 3 counties. We look forward to actually presenting these grants at our state board meeting next week to representatives from these 3 school districts, as well as continuing to work with Superintendent Ward and the FAST NC Steering Committee on making future grants to assist our students and teachers in recovering from Hurricane Florence. I'll now call Dr. Townsend. Yes, Mr. Ward.
Mr. Chair, I'm sorry, I failed to do something. Dr. Henry Johnson, former Associate State Superintendent, former Mississippi State Superintendent, and former U.S. Assistant Secretary of Education, is on the NC Steering Committee and is here with me. I just wanted to point out not only his work on the steering committee, but he took the lead in the development of the FAST NC Steering Committee, the application rubric, and that was extraordinarily helpful as we went through these applications. And again, Ms. White, in one of those early meetings, recommended that rubric, and Dr. Johnson went right to work on it.
Thank you so much.
Dr. Johnson, thank you for your service and leadership on this.
You're quite welcome. Thank you.
So our business is now concluded, and I'll ask for a motion to adjourn. Is there a motion?
So moved, Olivia.
Motion by Dr. Oxendine, a second.
Second by Amy White.
Second by Ms. White. Dr. Townsend Smith, will you capture the vote?
Yes, sir. Dr. Oxendine?
Yes.
Ms. White?
Yes.
Vice Chair Duncan?
Yes.
Chair Davis?
Yes.
It's unanimous.
The motion carries, and we stand adjourned. Thank you all. We'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great afternoon.
Mike Ward.
Has left.